Welcome back to the final sermon in our series, The Greatest Love. As we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus this Easter day, we're celebrating the love of God through Jesus Christ. We're celebrating the fact that God loved us so much that he allowed his son Jesus to come into the world and die. One of the passages of scripture I've read every week during the sermon series is John the 15th chapter, verses 9 through 17. John 15, 9 through 17. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love is no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last. And so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. Going and bearing fruit. Seeds have to be planted for fruit to grow. And the way we do that in this world is through loving each other. Today we're going to talk about the resurrection. We're going to talk about the resurrected Jesus. We're going to talk about the resurrected life. And we're going to talk about our resurrection home. The resurrected Jesus. John of Damascus wrote these words. The day of resurrection. Earth, tell it out abroad. The Passover of gladness, the Passover of God. From death to life eternal. From this world to the sky, our Christ hath brought us over with hymns of victory. Now let the heavens be joyful, let earth hear her song begin, let the round world keep triumph and all that is therein. Let all things seen and unseen their notes in gladness blend, for Christ the Lord hath risen, our joy that hath no end. Because of the resurrected Jesus, we have joy that doesn't need to end, because we have hope for all eternity. I want to share with you a passage from Luke the 24th chapter, the 13th through the 35th verses, as we look at a story of how Jesus encountered two men after his resurrection. Two men who knew who Jesus was and knew him well, but didn't recognize him on that road. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord is risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened, on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. In some ways, the resurrected Jesus wasn't so very different from the Jesus that they knew. He taught, he shared with them from the scriptures, he explained to them the Messiah from the beginning to the end of the Bible. All that they had, all the information they had, Jesus went through it and shared it with them. Jesus broke bread with them, and it was in the process of Jesus breaking bread that they were able to recognize him. But while he was not so different in some ways, he was very different in others. Jesus, it says that he disappeared after they recognized him, and Jesus was gone. Also, as Jesus walked along with them, they weren't able to recognize who he was. So in that way, he was somewhat different as well. It was not so different, but he was very different. And it's because of the resurrection. The resurrection changes everything. And recognizing that allows us to change our lives. Little Philip, born with Down syndrome, attended a third grade Sunday school class with several 8-year-old boys and girls. Typical of that age, the children did not readily accept Philip with his differences, according to an article in Leadership magazine. But because of a creative teacher, they began to care about Philip and accept him as part of the group, though not fully. The Sunday after Easter, the teacher brought Legs pantyhose containers, the kind that look like large eggs. Each receiving one, the children were told to go outside on that lovely spring day, find some symbol for new life and put it in the egg-like container. Back in the classroom, they would share their new life symbols, opening the containers one by one in surprise fashion. After running about the church property in wild confusion, the students returned to the classroom and placed the containers on the table. Surrounded by the children, the teacher began to open them one by one. After each one, whether a flower, butterfly, or leaf, the class would ooh and ah. Then one was opened, revealing nothing inside. The children exclaimed, "That's stupid. That's not fair. Somebody didn't do their assignment." Philip spoke up, "That's mine." "Philip, you don't ever do things right," the student retorted. "There's nothing there." "I did so do it," Philip insisted. "I did do it. It's empty. The tomb was empty." Silence followed. From then on, Philip became a full member of the class. He died not long afterward from an infection most normal children would have shrugged off. At the funeral, this class of 8-year-olds marched up to the altar, not with flowers, but with their Sunday school teacher, each to lay on it an empty pantyhose egg. The resurrected life. The resurrected life is intimately connected to the cross. Elizabeth Elliot said, "To be a follower of the crucified Christ means sooner or later a personal encounter with the cross, and the cross always entails loss." In Luke 9:21 through 26, this story is told. Jesus strictly warned them not to tell this to anyone, and he said, "The Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life." Then he said to them all, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his glory and in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels." David Garland said, "Jesus did not come to reward the deserving, but to serve the needy with reckless abandon." Jesus came to help us live a new life, the resurrected life. And this new life calls for some actions. Now, I shared this in a sermon a few weeks ago, but I wanted to go over it again today. The resurrected life is rooted in denying oneself. Jesus demonstrated that as the very Son of God gave up his life, forfeited his power so that he could die on our behalf. And he really, truly died for us. That's denying yourself. He took up his cross, and we're called to take up our cross. That means hardship, difficulty. That means all of that we need to take up and bear it daily and to follow him. The resurrected life is intimately connected to denying yourself, taking up your cross daily, and following him. It's also a new perspective, where gain is loss and loss is gain. In other words, the world tries to tell us that amassing a fortune is what it's about. Jesus says it's about giving it all away, getting rid of it all. Luke 14:33 says, in the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. It's about a new allegiance. It's about Team Jesus. I have always been a sports chameleon. Wherever I've lived, I've rooted for the local team, whomever that might be. Last night I sat up and watched the Michigan basketball game. I root for the Tigers. But for us as Christians, we have to give up all old allegiances and now follow Jesus. And shame has no place in the kingdom. We cannot be ashamed of the one that we need to be proud of. Then our resurrection home. Revelation 21:1-7 says, Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. A whole new world, described as a beautiful bride. Paula showed me pictures of Mars the other day, and it looked like just a vast desert. I will never forget the vision of Paula when I saw her walking down that aisle on her wedding day. The most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my life. Heaven, described as a beautiful bride. A whole new existence. God will live with us. There will be no tears, no death, no mourning, no crying, no pain. God will be with us. A whole new life supported by the water from the spring of the water of life. We will inherit all of this. Caleb and Katie were at our timeshare in Florida, and Caleb was explaining to her that one day all of that timeshare would be his. He said, it's all mine, it's all mine. And one day, heaven, it will all be ours. It will all be ours. And God says, I will be their God, and they will be my people. Katie was given a school assignment to write an essay entitled My Perfect World. She wrote, In my perfect world, ice cream is free, lollipops are everywhere, and the sky is blue all the time, with only a few clouds that have interesting shapes. Then her essay took a more serious turn. In that world, she continued, no one will come home with bad news, and no one will have to be the one to deliver it. The perfect world. The resurrected Jesus gives us the opportunity for a resurrected life with a resurrection home. Keep Kenwood Connected has been a reminder to stay connected with your church family since January. In February, we added connecting others to Jesus as a way to have a conversation with someone about Jesus. This month, we add share the greatest love. The challenge this week is to share with someone else your hope of a resurrected life found in the resurrected Jesus, which gives us anticipation for our new home in heaven. Try to find someone who is in despair and hopeless and share with them the hope of the resurrected life. Have a wonderful day. God bless.